Git add.
Yours let you do what?
Mine let me do the git add, but when I did git commit, it just said error. I don't know if I wrote, what do I write with the commit? I wrote it wrong.
Okay,
Do I
so
need to git add again?
I don't know if you do a git add dot git commit dash m.
Is it on a separate line? Like I did git dot add and then enter. Is it?
I can you be a little more specific? So you did.
What did you do? The git dot add and then you click enter? And then
Yeah.
you git commit, but what is, so do I have to do git dot add again? Because that seemed to be okay. That didn't give me an error, but then when I did git commit dash m.
You got, well, you have to put in a message there.
Um,
All right, so yeah, git add dot to add git commit dash m and then quotes, message.
so I have to do git add dot again since the commit didn't work.
If you can probably just do your git commit dash m if your add worked.
Git commit dash m. And then what do I write? Just anything?
Yeah.
In quotes.
Yeah.
Why did you write init commit though before? Was that?
Okay. I think so I'm, I know I say like, you can Google a lot of stuff and I have a bad memory, but let me say these are things like these 5 commands you should have memorized on what they do and what they are. So the first command we're going to have is the git init. This creates a repository repo on your computer or on your, like in the directory, you're in terminal.
James, after I wrote git init, a bunch of hints pop up. What does that mean?
I mean, what do they say?
It says hint using master as the name for the initial branch. This default branch name hint is subject to change to configure the initial branch name to use in all.
Ignore that.
Okay.
If it's working, that's fine. Like if it creates the Git repository, yeah, the hints and warnings are I'm not so concerned about right now. Yeah, so anyway, I'm not even going to get into that.
So my git commit worked, and then now I'm trying to git push origin master, and when I'm clicking that, it says origin does not appear to be on a Git repository.
Let's go over these commands, because instead of just like typing these commands and like being like, why don't they work? Let's just review them and see what they do. So git init creates a repo in the directory of your terminal. So this is on your computer. This is the repo on your computer. Okay. Then we have this command that we just did. And we have the git add dot. This is going to add I'm going to use this word stage all changes from the last commit. It's like getting them ready, getting those changes ready to be committed. Cool. Then we have a git command. Then we have the commit command. Git commit -m. Okay, so the git commit, this commits changes. Think of a commit as like a save. Your Git history. And this is on your computer. So with these three commands, so you do git init, you're going to do this, once. This git add and git commit, it's just, think about you're saving your work. It's just 2 steps. It's not, you're not just going to say git commit. You have to add your changes first and then commit them. So these 3 steps are all on your computer. Like this is all, we'll say these, these 3 are all for your local machine / that local repo. And you technically, like, we don't even need GitHub. Does that make sense? These 3 commands are just going to be for your machine. Now, if you want to use GitHub, you need to create, a repo on GitHub. So that's going to be like step 1. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to GitHub. Create our repository. So this would be like ES6 demos, I think. That's what I called it. And I'm going to append v22. So just give it a name and create the repository. So this is where you add the remote. So I need to like connect this repo with, my folder. So I just go ahead and copy this line right here. And throw that in here. Say this. Yeah, oh, I want to edit this. Add remote link in your directory, in your project directory. And then, yeah, this is not, this link right here is going to change. This is going to be that SSH link. So that's going to be dependent, this is going to be different for every repository. But it's going to be this command. You're saying git remote add origin. And then, if you want to push to GitHub, you need to add, git add dot on hitting enter, you need to get add dot, git commit -m, whatever. And then you do this command, git push origin master. I'll just say, I'm going to say it like this. I'm just going to leave a note here. Need to add and commit first. You can't push to master if you haven't committed first. So these are the 5 commands. Now, I think these, like with these terminal commands, it's, let's try to understand what they're doing instead of just like copy and paste them. Git init creates a repository in that directory where you ran that command. Git add dot is, I think this one's a little confusing when you're starting out. This one is whenever you make a change and you want to get it ready to commit, you're going to do this git add dot to stage it. So you're getting those changes ready to be committed. And then you do a git commit -m. That describes what you did since last commit. So you don't need GitHub to do all these 3 steps. But if you do want to use GitHub, then you need to create a repo and then add that link. Git remote add origin. I should say add remote link, which is we're calling origin in project directory. So you do it with that command. And then if you want to push code up to GitHub, you just need to remember, I need to add and commit first. And then I run this command, git push origin master.
Do you have to be in that specific file in order for it to push to GitHub? So this is only doing the ES6 demo, right?
Yeah, technically I'd have to be in this folder or like a subfolder. But yeah, because if I CD back to week 1, I don't have, like, I do a git push origin master, like this isn't even a repository.
Okay, so in order for me to do like all the homework one, I'd have to CD into like the homework folder and then do all these steps. Okay.
Yeah. Well, because really, I mean, this git init step and this git remote add origin, those you just do once, because you just create the repo once and you just add the remote once. And then you kind of get into this flow of like git add, git commit, git push.
Okay.
So, and you'll hear me like, I'll probably just shorthand like, add, commit, and push, but really you need to like say git add dot, git commit -m, git push origin master. Cool. So those are there's more to Git. This is like a very simplified like use case of Git, but this is like the most these are like this is like the minimum we need with Git. I'll also say this, there's some like helper commands that you see me use. So let's go over like some of these, like the git status. That just kind of shows like the current status. You can kind of think of this as like a snapshot. You've seen me type like git remote -v. This is going to it's going to like show me, which this is going to like show me the GitHub that I'm connected to, that local computer is connected to. Those are like the two that I've been using. So if I do like a git remote -v, see how the origin is that GitHub Jimmy Bouet ES6 demos ES6 demos W22. That is this repo right here. It's that SSH link right here. And notice the name of this is origin. So when I do a git push, I'm saying, hey, push to origin. And we're calling it origin, so I don't have to say like git push and then like type out this URL or that whatever that SSH link. So we give it an alias called origin. See right here when we do a get remote add origin, that's the alias and that's the link. And then I say master because and we haven't talked about branches, but there's the master branch that I'm pushing up. So I'm saying, hey, take this branch, which I called master, push it up to that origin, which is this SSH, like that's going to link to the SSH repo. Or it's going to link to the repo, but it's going to use SSH behind the scenes. Sweet. So yeah, and another thing, since I think one thing that you can kind of get, that can kind of be like, I would consider like a bad practice. I mean, I get at the start that, you know, there's a lot of these foreign commands, but, you know, as you're going through and creating the, you know, GitHub, try to think about what these commands are actually doing. And if you're like a little confused, like, man, what does git init do? Or what does git add do? If you don't quite understand it, you know, do a little Google search and take like a couple minutes, you know, to read up on it, to see if there's like one spot that's like a little fuzzy for you, if you can try to understand what's going on. But yeah, I would say for these 5 commands, let's like, I really want you to know what these are doing. By like, let's say like the end of like week 2. I'm not meaning like today, but I hope like, if these are unclear by like next, you know, the end of next week, I definitely want to like go over it again. Cool. Any questions on this right now while we're kind of talking about it?
What part do I copy into the GitHub? What to get the file? How do I create the repository in GitHub?
You tell me.
In the repository, what you said, when you are doing the repository name, do you just copy the folder, or what part is it that you copy?
I don't what you mean. Which repo?
Yeah. When you click to make a new repository, what do you do in GitHub?
Oh, what you do in GitHub to make a new repository?
Yeah.
Well, you make the new repository, and then you go to the plus button, new repository, give it a name.
So I would name it like the folder name, or just?
Yeah, the folder name, and then create repository. And then, yeah, add that remote.
To where?
In your terminal. To where you're at. Like to the project that you're like, I have like this ES6 demos that we just created, this directory. So this would be like your project. This would be like your homework 1. You would create it, add the remote there. Cool. So here I was like, here's the steps. I was in, you know, I was in my week 1. I made a directory. called ES6 demos, because that's what we're going to be doing. I CD'd into that. I did a git init that creates a repo on my computer. And then, I did a git add, git commit. I can do that, without having a GitHub account or GitHub repo. And then later on, I created a repo and I added the git remote add origin, which I copied from here when I created my repo on GitHub. And now that I have a repo, now that I have a repo on GitHub and have added that remote, I can now push to master. There we go. Now I should refresh my GitHub. Did I not? Oh, maybe it doesn't have any changes. Git add dot. I made some changes. Oh wait, this is that's the repo I just created. There we go. There's my app.js on GitHub. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and get into just a little ES6 stuff. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about mainly, I kind of want to talk about things we can do with arrays and objects, just some kind of nice little shorthands. So let's do I'm just going to call this ES6 syntax / features. So let's look at arrays, some things we can do with arrays really quickly. So we briefly saw this. Let's say I have an array of letters. Let letters equal A, B, C. We can clone an array with the spread operator. I can say const clone equals, I'm going to do brackets this array, and I'm going to, how I would say this is I'm going to spread out over letters. Console.log letters and console.log clone.
So the 3 dots basically mean spread. That's how you used it.
That's what they call this. This is an operator. ... This is called the spread operator.
And that's just copying A to C.
It's going to it's just going to copy the contents. It's just, imagine this just taking that array and plopping it in this array. So if I run node app.js, I have 2 arrays that are ABC, but they're clones of each other. So little quiz here. Are these 2 arrays equal? I mean, we can kind of we can see if they're double equal. They're triple equal. So these are not equal to each other. They're the same array, they have the same values. Why are they not equal? When comparing things like arrays and objects gets a little more nuanced if you're saying they're equal or not. It's kind of imagine I have 2 cans of Coke on my desk. Are those the same?
Oh, they're two different things. They just look the same.
Yeah, they're two different things. I could say, but I could also say they are the same. It just depends how I'm defining equality. Because like if I switch them up and I drink them, they're like going to be, they taste the same, they look the same, they are the same, but they are two different things. So that's what's going on here. These two arrays are kind of like, you know, two separate cans of Coke where they're the exact same thing, but they're two different, but there's two of them. So it's a clone. So that's how I can make a clone of something pretty easy if I want to clone in an array. Another nice thing with this is I can also, I can spread out over it, and then I can also just add values to the start and the back. So now I can like create this array that has like 0, you know, then it copies those array, that letters right there, just throws it right there, and then has D and E. Maybe I'll do this as like a separate example. All right, so yeah, we could console.log. You know, add more. This is a really nice, like when you're talking about like adding stuff to the front and the end and like copying stuff, this is just a really good clean syntax. Const another demo. And I can do this with multiple arrays. So I could like spread out over my letters. I could add like a dash and then could spread out over this add more. So I can spread out over multiple arrays. And then I need to log that. So it's just a way I can like, you know, add, you know, take my arrays, copy them, clone them, add more things to it. So pretty nice syntax there. This just makes writing JavaScript, you know, very nice. Another thing with arrays, let's say I have an array like let, because we're going to see this with, we're going to kind of see this with React in this, a use case of this in React. So let's say I have an array equal, like I have like some number in here. And then let's do something weird and like throw a function. As the second thing. So I have an array that has a number, then it has a function, and then sure, let's give it a, or it has a string, it has a function, then it has a number. What I can do is I can pull off these, I can create some variables. So I can say like let, you know, X, Y, Z. These are just variables, so I can call them whatever. Equal array. All right, let's see what these are doing. See what X is. Let's see what Y is, and let's see what Z is. X is 12, so notice X is that first thing in the array. Y is the second thing in the array, which is a function, and Z is just that that third thing. So this is how I can do like array destructoring. I can just grab value. I can grab like the by order. So this is going to be in ordered, like order. So I can grab these values and store them to variables. Let's do like Q. What do you think Q is going to be? You know, if X is 12 and
just 1 second, you said that grabs the values and stores them in what?
okay, let me show it like this. So I could say let, you know, A equal array at 0. I could say let B equal array at 1 and C equal array at 2. Right? I could just declare variables and say, hey, A, you're going to equal the first thing. B, you're going to equal the second thing in the array. And C, you're going to equal the third thing in the array.
That's okay. So it's grabbing the value and storing it in the variable.
Yeah.
That's the word I missed. I was trying to type it all down as you were saying it.
You know, above works, but you know, this is the better way because it's cleaner. But yeah, so
should be undefined, right?
Yeah, this would be undefined because I only have 3 things in my array. So I'm trying to grab like the 4th thing in the array, which is not there. So there's my undefined. Here's a little question. Okay, so why is my function? How do I get that to run? Just invoke it. So why is just a function so I can just call it? Go ahead, see if that works. It's giving me undefined. So there's my here. There's that console.log here. Why is this? Okay, this is another tricky little question. Why is, so let me just do why so we can see this. So it logs here, but now y is undefined. Why is y undefined? Or like, why is this? The function runs, it's logging here. But why is this undefined? This one's a little tricky.
Is it because you have it defined on the array twice, one being the let XYZQ equal array and one being let B equal array 1?
No, because those are 2 different. These are 2, I mean, they're the same function, but yeah, they're not defined twice because those are 2 different variables. So I have a B variable and I have a Y variable. Those are the same thing, the B and Y, those are both that function. Let me ask, what does this function return? Doesn't return anything. It's just console.logs. Let's see if I can do this in one line. If I have this function in here, log hello, and then return 1. Now y is 1. Because this function is going to run, it's going to log here, and then it returns 1. But if I don't have it return anything, then it returns undefined. But yeah, just to show you, we could have in our array, we could have a function. We could have, you know, the first thing be a value and then the second thing be a function. We're actually going to see that with React today. And then we're going to do this destructuring. Cool. That's kind of what I want to get to arrays. There's more, but I'm just going to keep this a little brief. Let's talk about objects.
Can you slack out that code?
Yeah. Let me slack this out. Okay. Since I slacked that out, I'm just going to delete this. Okay, so let's talk about objects. So remember an object, those are our key value pairs. So let's just create a person, like let person equal name, rank, and age 22. So our generic person there, maybe like it has some friends, which is in an array. Okay, so there's my person. So like we did with arrays, we can do object cloning. So I could say let person clone equal, and then this time I'm just going to use curly brackets and then use the spread operator again, and then person. Log person log person clone. So now I have two copies of, you know, this person. And this is nice because then, you know, I can also here, I can clone a person, but then I can add extra attributes, like maybe, you know, DOB. First. So I can spread out over this person and I can give it a new attribute. I'm just going to do this as like I did in the last one where we just person clone. So this one we can clone over the person. We can add, you know, with DOB. So we can just simply clone one. We can add stuff to it, add attributes. We can also update an attribute. So let's say I want to clone the person, but I want everything to be the same except for the age. So I can come in here and like, you know, update the age. I need to log this.
Do you have to capitalize DOB all the way?
I mean, I don't have to. I just, so with JavaScript, we use what's called Camel Case, where, you know, where if you have a word that has multiple words, like person clone with like person clone, like that should be 2 words, right? So you might see like in Ruby, we'd use snake case. It's just, this works in JavaScript. This is like valid JavaScript. It's just kind of convention. Like when you have multiple words, you use a capital letter. Does that make sense? So like, let's just talk about like snake case and camel case.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I was just making sure you didn't have to capitalize the whole thing.
I just capitalize because DOB is like, that's an abbreviation. So yeah, I would probably capitalize that. Just so we know, snake case is, you know, my age. So it'd be an underscore. Camel case is my age, where if there's 2 letters or 2 or more letters or whatever, you use capital letters. Snake case, you use an underscore. So there is, yeah, this is really nice. Cloning an object, adding attributes, and then also updating an attribute. That's really nice. Because maybe you just want to update an object and you just want to change one thing in it, but you can still copy all of those fields and just update one thing. Let's do what we did like with the arrays. Let's do object destructuring. So once again, I could say like let, X equal person dot age, right? We have an age, or let Y equal person dot name. But I can do this with object destructuring. I can say let name age equal person. Console.log name and age. Wasn't like that. I don't know why that's crossing that out. Thinks it's like a deprecated thing. Let's do it as a const. All right, it's working. We have Frank and we have 22. And then likewise, I could do console.log x, console.log y. Those would be the same thing. But here, the names of the variables have to match name of keys in object. That kind of makes sense, right? Because like if I did like C and V, how is it going to know which is which? Because when we talk about objects, we don't really think about objects being in order. I mean, I know I said name first and age first and friends first, but really there's no order to this. So if I say like const C and V equals person, it's going to have no way to find that. So I need to match. If I want to do ES6 destructuring on objects, I have to match the key name. So I get like, name and age. Let's see this like as in a function. So let's say I have a function, like say hi, that takes a person. Person object. And then this console.log person, like hello person.name, you are person.age. So here's a function. Oh, I need to match. Well, let's look at this example just to guess if this is going to work. All right, so here's my person up here, and let me just like throw this down here so we can see it. I'm going to comment it out. So I do have this person defined here. This is like a little bit of a brain teaser. What is this going to say and why? I think the why is more important. Because you might get it right, but you might get it right for the wrong reason.
Would it say all three of their names and age?
What do you mean all three of them?
What did it say? Or two? How many did you put up top? Two of them?
We just have one person.
Oh, okay. I was thinking with his friends included. Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
I mean, we have the code.
Hello, Frank, you are 22.
Hello, Frank, you are 22. Why is that going to say that? That's what it's going to say, but why?
Because you already have the say hi, so you're just calling it. The person OBJ is just what you're naming inside of the,
Is this, yeah, okay, so is this person OBJ doing anything?
no.
No.
No. So what I'm doing here is I have this person object defined outside of my function. So when I console.log hello person.name, you are person.age. Hello, Frank, you are 22. Let's say I come in here and like I pass this an object of name Tony and age 23. So we saw this one. This one says hello, Frank. You are 22. What is this one going to say? On line 39.
Is it gonna just interject Tony and name 23 in the same format? So like, hello, Tony, you are 23? Or is it gonna just put it at the end of hello, Frank, you are 22?
Yeah, this one actually is just going to say hello, Frank, you are 22.
Okay, so it's not actually.
That's an error. Where's my error? Oh, let person. Okay, I've already declared that. So let's run this. Hello, Frank, you're 22. Because this person right here is now referring to this variable person. So as I pass
You've
this,
never assigned the person object to anything within the function.
yeah, this really isn't doing anything. So let's switch this to person. Now, what is this one going to say? The line 38.
It wouldn't have any. You didn't give it anything, so it would just say, hello, you are.
Yeah, it's going to probably say something like, hello, you're undefined.
Or hello.
Undefined. Actually, this is going to break. I guess this is going to error. No, wait, no, this is probably going to break. That's my guess. This breaks. Because, and that was a good guess to say like, hello, this is undefined, you're undefined, but really this is going to break because I'm using this person.name and then I'm going to get this error. You cannot read property undefined name. Like I can't do undefined.name because this time I'm not passing it anything. So person's going to be undefined. I do undefined.name. That's an error. Even though person's defined up right here, these are not the same thing now. Person is this is my function definition. And this person parameter on line 35 is now just going to be scoped to this function. And so then if I want that person parameter to be defined, I need to pass it as an argument. So now on line 39, I'm passing a person, which is the person on 33. So now this works. So now it says hello to this person object. That's just a variable. And then I can also say hi, and I can just like hard code a object in there with name and age.
Why doesn't it add the hello and then it says in your $sign? Why wouldn't it say name Frank name?
Oh,
doesn't say
like
the name.
name colon Frank.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it say that?
Because it's just how objects work. So like if I I have some object in here. Let we'll just call this an object name over X and then age is 1. Because when I say person.x, I know I'm grabbing X, or pers.x, I just want to grab, or wait, it's name. I just want to grab that value. Like, what is this person's name? Like if I asked you what your name is, you're not going to respond name James, or name Bob. You're just going to say James or Bob. So that's kind of why that's like the person.name is that value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. So it's always, so name, age, and friends, that Java recognizes them as objects after the colon.
Yeah, person is the object. Name, age, and friends are the keys. Frank,
Keys, okay.
keys. Those are the keys, and Frank 22 and like this array, those are the values. And kind of like just think about it, like every person has a name, they have an age, they have friends. But those values are going to be different for each person.
So if we wanted to put in the keys as well, we'd have to put in a different in the console.
Yeah,
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Cool. So I can exit out of that. So there's just a little review on functions, and yeah, once again, the confusingness of, you know, the parameter versus like the variable and passing the function. So I think if you can, like, you know, wrap this example around your head, I think that can definitely will help with, you know, which is which, because you do get code like this where it's like you have a person variable here and then you have a person param here, and you're passing the person like which is which. But something else I want to show you, just to go back to this Es6 destructuring. So person is an object, right? Or I'm expecting this to be an object. I could actually, in my function definition, I'll call this say hi one. I could just destructure the name and age right here. And then let's just like say hi one again right here. Exit. And that these two are the same.
With the say hi one, would you have to, could you just write the strings out, or would you still have to say name, comma, or name colon Tony age colon 23? Or could you just give it the string and the number?
You mean, oh, you mean like this? Are you talking about like I could do like Tony and then 23?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try it. Hello, undefined, you are undefined. So if you, this is Es6 destructuring. So this is saying, hey, I'm expecting this. This is just one parameter, but I'm expecting this parameter to be an object, and I'm expecting that object to have the name and age key. Just like right here, this is person is just an object, and I'm expecting that object to have a name and age key.
So question on line 44, if you change the name and the age, it should still run correctly, right? On line 44, the same one high.
Oh yeah, change that.
All right.
But if I change the key, that won't work.
All right, I understand that.
The keys need to be the same. The key needs to match like that, like what I'm using in the function definition. Like this is expecting person to be, you know, an object with name and age. This function right here, expecting, it's not even person, it's just the param, the first param. So you'll definitely see like these two. So something we're going to see with React a lot is we're going to have a functional component const like whatever component, and it takes this parameter called props. Now props is just going to be a object, and the keys and values are going to change, are going to be varied on the component. But props is just the kind of generic name we call this, but it's always going to be an object. So we can, since it's an object, you can say either like props and do like props.key in your function, key1, props.key2. Or you could write it like this, key1, key2. Just keep it at 2 for now. And then you don't have to say props dot, you can just say key1, key2. But they're this props is just an object. Just like right here, person, I'm expecting person to be an object with the key, name, and age. Here, I would just say this function doesn't even have to be React. Let's just make this function work. Let's just key1. Key2. Call this comp. So let's say I want to make this function work and I want to make comp1 work. What do I need to pass this function? I need to pass it an object with the key, key1, or it can be whatever value, key2, whatever value. And same thing with here. Like you don't like, right? This props doesn't have to even mean anything. That's just a name. I could call this like turkey. But I'm saying turkey. Sorry.
Sorry. Is it easy to, it's just easier to do the first one then, right? Instead of having to write 2 variables out, you just write 1.
Well, I mean, it's a trade-off because this one I always have to say turkey dot key1, turkey dot key2. Here I can say key1, key2. So if I'm using key1 a lot and I'm using, in my function, this one becomes cleaner. Because I don't have to keep on saying turkey dot, turkey dot, turkey dot. I can just say key1, key1, key1. But they do the same thing. So I
Okay.
can run this.
And you have to put the curly brackets inside of the comp one for that to work.
Yeah. And then that, I have to do the curly brackets because that is the object. It's kind of like what we're doing here. It's like the object destructuring. I could also do the destructuring right here. I could say const key1, key2 equals turkey. And now I can, grab those keys like that because I have those 2 variables defined. So here I can now grab them as those variables key1, key2 because I do the destructuring there, or I could call them from the object. Or I could just destructure them right there in the function definition.
That makes sense.
So it's more, I would say right now, write it the way that makes more sense to you. I'm just going to say there's not like, for now, there's not like a preferred way. I've just kind of like got to show you these things just because it's like JavaScript syntax. and you'll definitely like see this being used in examples. So yeah, and it's just more important, like, okay, so this is a good review of it, like functions again. Like here I have two functions. The key thing here is they're both expecting, just by how I'm using them in the function, I'm expecting this to be called with a object that has a key1 key and a key2 key. And same thing with this comp1. They are being called where I'm passing an argument with an object that has a key1 key and a key2 key. If I give this like a, if I change that name like to X and Y, well, now I can't destructure like key1 and key2. Those are going to be undefined because, that's X and Y. I'd have to switch that to X and Y. So we'll keep it. I'll kind of keep these ES6 things. And I used to just do like all this ES6 stuff in one day, but I think I'm just going to break it up into like little hour sections. So this is kind of like ES6, kind of more with regards to arrays and objects. And once you kind of get a hang of this stuff, it really makes writing JavaScript so nice. Like before, copying objects and copying arrays was kind of a pain, but this is nice. So I'll select this out. And then, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's take a break as well. We're going a little long. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's call it. Man, is it already 11? Let's do 11:05. We'll give you a little longer. Does anyone have any questions though? I can stick on for a bit.
Just one. I guess when would you use hard brackets in that? And that's not deconstructing it. You wouldn't use it unless you're, I don't know.
Yeah, I think like when would I use this versus that? Like,
yeah, instead of like the curly brackets using, because the hard brackets, aren't they an array?
Oh yeah. You mean the square brackets are for arrays.
So you wouldn't use the square brackets in key1, key2 when you deconstructed it on the second one. Yeah, for comp one.
Yeah, I couldn't do that because then that would not work.
Okay. So then in what case would you use, it would be inside the curly brackets if you wrote something else?
When would I use the curly brackets?
So like you would use the curly brackets to write key1 and key2, but if you needed to add something else, could you use the square brackets inside that, or no? Like when would you use the heart or the square brackets in that, or would you ever use the square brackets?
So this example right here, this is object destructuring. So I'm taking this object that's like they're passing it to me and I'm just pulling those keys off of it. I can't come here and like add a random key because it doesn't exist in this object. When I was adding the random key, that was more when we were talking about cloning. So here I'm not doing destructuring, I'm creating a copy of this person. Like I'm copying it. Here I'm like adding a field and here I'm like updating a field. That's different than the destructuring stuff.
Okay.
With the destructuring, I'm just pulling off the variables so I can like use them. I'm pulling off the keys and setting them as variables so I can use them in my app.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool.
Dean, they got a question about the Git.
About what?
Trying to do a final push up to Git this morning for the homework, and it gave me some weird message and I want to start messing around with it, make things work. Can you look at it real quick?
Yeah, you want to share your screen?
Well, I don't, to me, it's telling me that there's already something in here, or already a repository. But I don't want to start erasing stuff.
Well, you just because that I wonder if like that git push origin masked and then you have the R off. Just try.
Oh, the R is right here.
I know, but I wonder if there's like a space or something. Just run it again.
Okay, I think it was when I had this pushed over to the side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks like it worked, but just let me just do it again. Just double check. Because yeah, it does look like it tried to push there. Okay. So you do a git status. US. I don't know if your
I had
computer.
to plug in it decided to die right then there.
Okay, so you have, well, I guess you should still be able. Just do a git add dot git commit dash and can give it a message. Looks like you have some things that need to be committed. Okay, now push again. Just hit up. So, because if you hit up, you can get to that like up again because you just typed it up again. Up again. There we go. Enter. Yeah. Okay, so I think what you've done is somewhere else on a different directory, you've added this same remote to this GitHub account. So you have two Git repos on your computer linked to the same repo, maybe. So you can try doing a git pull origin master. I don't know, you might want to take your code and copy and paste it. Actually, it'll be fine. Just do a git pull. Let's see if it fixes it. Copy that. See how it says, no, scroll up where it says the git config pull rebase false. Git config pull dot rebase false. It's like the first one after the space. Copy that and run that command. No, just the git config pull dot rebase false. Yeah, from there to there, cool. Now I'll do a git push origin master. Or you might have to do a pull again. Do a git push origin map. You want to push this one up, right?
Yeah.
Do a git push or so hit up. And then do a space. Do a dash dash. Do a force. There you go. You generally don't want to do a force, but yeah, I think you just have, I think what you have is you have two, maybe that link is on another project somewhere. And so you've pushed it up twice from different repos on your computer and it's getting confused.
Is there I think when I did this, I might have, gone into here, made a repo, and then made the file for the homework.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Like you can use, especially if you're working by yourself, like the force is a little more safe, but don't.
It should be make the file first.
Yeah.
While you're in the file, then create the repo in GitHub, then copy the link, and then go through all the other steps.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it might have gotten messed up when we were, everyone was talking and we're going, and you have to go back and forth helping people. I think I got messed up doing that. All right, so it's up there. Thank you. I actually got a lot of it done this time, so it's
Sweet. Awesome, man. It's good.
the weird thing is though, I did all the stuff in Ruby for the brain teasers, and I had a really hard time trying to figure out how to make the switch to Java or JavaScript. A lot of the other stuff that you asked to do, I was able to do and figured it out, but just for some reason, I was looking at the old file and it's like, I made it work in this, this language. Why am I having so much trouble, changing around so it works in Java?
I think JavaScript's, I think the syntax is harder than Ruby.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm gonna step away for a bit, but
Okay.
yeah, back in a couple minutes. Okay. So let's get into some React. So I just want to do a brief little about React. So this is going to be in the JavaScript array loops section. I just have this thing here, React JS counter. But first of all, let me ask, has anyone done anything with React? Does anyone know what it is?
I personally haven't.
That's good. It's good. We're all starting out kind of brand new on it. So you all, before this course, we're doing some like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, making web pages, right? So with, back, in the day, I'm going to call it in the day, because, it's like 6-7 years ago, which is forever ago in computer land, 8 years ago. Yeah, when you would write web pages, you'd have like an HTML files, you'd have your CSS files, and then you'd have like your JavaScript files. And then you would have your JavaScript code would like go in and have to manipulate all the HTML stuff. And you'd use things like jQuery or to help you with, jQuery is just a library written on top of JavaScript to make it easier to interact with that HTML. But React came along, and React really thought about doing it a different way. It's like, hey, let's write like the HTML and JavaScript, and let's build out these components. And it is such a better way to do it, because then all of a sudden you have the power of, like, it's kind of giving JavaScript the like more control. So we get rid of HTML files and we only have JavaScript. We can still do CSS stuff, but even sometimes some people might choose not to have any CSS and allow all the styling to be done with JavaScript. So yeah, React was a pretty big game changer. There's other libraries that came out as well that are pretty popular, like Vue.js and Angular. Those are two other ones that I feel, kind of have this idea of like really putting JavaScript at the forefront and this idea of components. And we'll talk about that. So yeah, just think about like components are self-contained like modules that render some output. Generally, like it's HTML. At the end of the day, these components are going to render HTML to the DOM. These components are going to be reusable. So we can write all this complicated logic once and then reuse that component in an easier way. So it's once again, it's one of these ways React is going to allow us to break up our web app into smaller like subcomponents that are easier to build, easier to maintain, and then we can reuse that logic. It's kind of actually React components that we're going to be building. They're just functions. They're just going to be JavaScript functions. So yeah, before we get started, I mean, we have just basic knowledge of HTML, CSS. We have basic knowledge of JavaScript. What kind of when we talk about what the DOM is, the document object model, has anyone heard that term? The DOM is just, if you like inspect, if you right click on a web page and you inspect, and you go to the elements and you're like looking at the HTML and all of this stuff, this is like the DOM. It's just essentially this document right here. Actually, I'd say this is definitely not important for right now as we're getting started. But yeah, we're kind of going to need to grab, and some of these, I know we're just learning, we're going to need some more ES6 syntax examples. So we'll we'll kind of get, as we go through the course, we'll get more familiar with ES6. Yeah, so React.js is one of the most popular libraries on GitHub. You know, has over 100,000 stars. We're going to talk about MVC in week 3. So React is really for like the view of our app. It's like the front end. It's the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript that we're going to be doing. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. We're going to do what we did yesterday and create a React app. We're going to run this yarn create React app command. So this one might be one you just kind of want to remember. Yarn create React app and then the name of the project. So let's do that. So when you build this out, you're going to want to run this command in like your week 1 directory, or like kind of like one of those root level subdirectories. So I'm going to do this in my week 1 directory. And let me control this. So we're going to do a yarn create React -app, and then we give it the name of our application. So maybe I'll just call this like React demo.
So can I do this in my folder for the ES6 demo?
No. Because let me explain why you don't want to do that. Or maybe one of you can tell me why. So we have an ES6 demo. So you gotta think of these as like projects, right? This has its own GitHub repo, right? So this React project, and especially like with React projects, you're gonna want your React projects to be their own thing, to have their own repos. So right now, this ES6 demo, it already has its own repository. So that's like the number one sign you don't want to do it in that directory. If there's a repo in it, you don't want to run that yarn create React app command. So I'm going to CD back to week 1, somewhere where I don't have that repo.
I have a quick question about that.
Yeah.
So you can have repos in the same folder, right? As long as, so we have different repos in this week 1 folder, right?
Yeah.
But you can't have 2 repos that are in the same file.
Think about it like as like parent sibling relationship. So week 1 is like the parent. ES6 first project homework, these are siblings. So like the siblings can have their own repos, but the parent, like I can't have a parent have a repo and then have like a sibling also have a repo.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I can, because like, yeah, that
So,
has,
yeah.
this
So
one
you
has a
wouldn't want to
repo.
have a file inside like the ES6 and then have a repo in that. You wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, can you explain that again?
Yeah. So, I mean, one way you
Because
can,
I had created a ES6 demo, and then inside of it, I just have an app.js. And that's the one that I put onto the repository, that whole ES6 demo folder.
yeah. So that's fine. So like, okay, right now I'm in my week 1 directory. If I see, and like, if I do an ls, I'm just listing, hey, these are the children. These are the subdirectories inside of this week 1 directory. One of those is the ES6 demo. If I CD into that, that has a GitHub repo. That's fine. Let's say I make a dir inside of here, like, I'm just going to call it child. Now I do an ls, and there, now ES6 demos has a child directory. If I CD into that, I don't want to do like a git init here, or I don't want to like create a React app inside of here. I want to do this at like a level where I don't have a Git repo.
So
I mean,
then I essentially could just open a new folder, React, and then start it there.
Open a new folder in React.
Yeah, just like name a new folder, name it React, and then start the React in that.
No, just do it in your like week 1 directory. Or you could, well, yeah, you could come in here and do cd React, or you could, if you wanted to, yeah, you could do something like make dir React. Cd into React. And then yarn create React.
Okay, that's how I'm gonna do it.
So if that's how you want to do it, yeah, that would work. So what I'm going to do, but yeah, just in one of those directories, I'm going to do yarn create React-app. Yeah, I'll call this, I mean, in the notes, it's called counter, but I'm just going to call this React demo. And then I'm going to hit enter.
So I thought when we did that, we weren't supposed to be able to like utilize the terminal. I thought it blocked it up, but I'm still able to type in mine.
Oh no, that's the server.
Oh, okay.
So this is going down. It's like downloading all of these JavaScript packages we need to run React. So it's downloading it. It's creating the project. It's not going to run it though.
Okay. I thought I had done something wrong since I was still able to type.
Yeah. Well, and now that it's done, I get, you know, a new command prompt. I can ls, and I can now see I have a React demo project.
Okay.
So now I can cd into that. React demo. And there it is. The Git repository is already initialized. So I don't need to run Git init, right?
Right.
I don't need to run that command. It's automatically giving me a repo.
So question, how is it already repoed, especially with mine, because I created a whole new folder that has never been repoed in my desktop?
Yeah, no, this is not. So you created my week 1 by running that yarn create React app. It doesn't give me a repo in the week 1 directory. It creates a React demo file project that has the repo. See, I can go back to a React week 1 and do a yarn create React app, you know, another React app, create another React app.
So when you're creating the React app, it already comes with the Git?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when we made the first project folder, was that doing the same thing that we're doing today?
Is that what we called the React project yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, same thing. So ls, so was it the first projects? Yeah, so if I cd into that, yeah, that's a React project. I could cd into the React demo. That's its own, like these are their own separate React projects. So I have like, and then yeah, I did another React project.
Yeah, I also do have the first React project that we created yesterday sitting in a different folder too.
Yep, you're gonna have multiple React. You're gonna run this yarn create React app multiple times throughout this course.
All right.
So yeah, but you're never gonna want to run. So let's say I'm in my CD, like I'm in React demo. Like this is a React project. I don't want to create a React project in a React project. So don't do that. That doesn't, we don't want to nest those. So yeah, let's cd, I'm going to cd into my React demo. Let's open this up into code. So code dot. There's that's in code. Another thing I might want to do now, since we are going to start our server, is I can do in my terminal, do a command D. This just gives me 2 panes, and in one of them I can run the yarn start. I mean, you're not going to get easier than this to create a project. It's, well, it's 3 commands. It's, create the app, cd into it, and then run, yarn start. And boom, you have a React app up and running.
So you said go on the terminal, click CD, open up 2 terminals, and then on one of them click, what is it again?
Yarn start.
Yarn start. It doesn't matter which one.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which one. So this flow right here, like, memorize this by Monday, because you're going to just do this so much. So I'm going to say you're going to cd into a root level directory, or like a week root level directory, like week 1.
Got a package JSON file there.
What was that?
The package JSON file there.
All right, when you run what?
Doing the yarn create.
1 second. Yarn create React app, then project name. Yarn start. So those are those 3 commands. So you create the project with the yarn create React -app project name, then you cd into that, and then you run yarn start. Michael, do you want to like take a screenshot and send me that error?
Yep.
Or you can share your screen, whichever's easier.
Gotta stop sharing.
Okay, yeah, so yeah,
I think he didn't give it a name. Is that the problem?
well, yeah, you're doing like yarn. Is this a React project?
Afraid of this one from scratch, but gave it a name.
Create. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I
not the, it's the yarn create React -app. And are you in? Yeah. You're also in like this first React app folder. Like, that doesn't make sense to create a React app. Like, you want to cd back to your week 1. And then you run that yarn create React app, and then the name. And that's out in Slack.
Okay.
Cool. Sweet. So let's just take a quick little look at, what's going on here. Go in and look at the code. So we're not going to do much with this or anything really at all. If I go into my public, my index.html, here's our one HTML file that we're going to be using with React. So React apps are single page. Sorry, was there a question?
I was just saying you're not sharing your screen if we're meant to be seeing something.
Thank you. Yeah. Can you see VS Code, or do you see the other one?
VS Code.
Cool. So yeah, if I go in, so I'm in VS Code, I've opened this up with my code dot command, and I have these folders. I'm in the public index.html. This is actually our one HTML file. So our React apps are going to be called like single page applications, because there's really just this one HTML file. So if you find yourself needing the only reason, or like one of the main things you're only going to be changing here, if you want to add meta tags to your head in your HTML, this is where you would do it. Like you want to add like a Google Fonts link, you would add that here. But really, we're not going to do anything with this file. If we look here and we see the body, we see this one div with the ID of root. Cool. So let's go to our index.js. So in the source index.js. Now we're going to be seeing some new things because we haven't worked with multiple files yet. So we're going to be seeing like import statements and export statements. So notice right here, I'm importing this app from space app, and you can see I have this app.js right here. This is really appended with a JS, but in a JavaScript file, if you're importing something from a JavaScript file, you can leave off the .js. If it's not a JavaScript file, like an index.css file, you have to put the extension. So we import our index.css. Could look at there. There's the CSS, some styling that's going on. We import app. We look at our app component. Well, that kind of looks like the, edit source app.js and save to reload. That looks a lot like what's going on here. I mean, that is it. We export default that app. And in our index.js, we use this React DOM render to take that app component and render it to that document get element by ID root. So this is where like our JavaScript meets the index.html. We're not going to have to worry about this now. I wanted to show you, like, because we're going to be all working in JavaScript, but this is where we take our app component and we actually append it. Like it's going to get converted into HTML, and then we append it right there. But I shouldn't say I should say React does that. Cool. So we don't really need to touch this file for now. We're just going to kind of taking a look at it. Just did want to point out, we're importing some index.css, so we can add CSS right here. And then we go to my app.js, right? This is just a function app. And then it has a return, something that we're not used to seeing, like it has these parentheses on the return. Because this is actually a new type of data that we haven't worked with. This is not HTML. This is what's called JSX. This is code that allows us, to write, I'm going to quote, HTML in JavaScript. And JSX is a React thing. Cool. So we have a function that's just returning JSX, and JSX just looks a lot like HTML. So let's go ahead and, delete some of this. Go in, make a change. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to split these so I don't have to go back and forth. So that'll be a little more nice for you. So here's a little trick with Macs. I have two screens and I want to split these equally. I can click and hold or just, hover over the green thing. And I can do full screen, or I can do like title to the left or to the right. I'll select that. And then I can pick another window to be the second half. And then I can kind of like adjust these however I want. So I can have two screens I can have like this full screen and I can have 2 screens on it. Another thing I like to do, and this is like a Mac trick, is a 3-finger swipe to go between screens, to go between full screens. I can do a 3-finger swipe up to rearrange the order of that. You can also do like a command tab to like pick your apps, to like quickly navigate to one of them. Go to Slack really quick. That I have another window open, but that opened up Slack in my window. Like, let's see if I go to iTerm.
Also with that command tab, it'll just go, if you just press it, it'll just go to your last tab that you had open. You don't have to go select it.
Yeah, command tab goes to the recent one. You can also do like a command shift tab to go the other way. Tab to the, I personally just use like the 3-finger swipe, but the command tab one works good too. So sweet, here we go. So now we have this, we have our function app where we're writing some JSX. Yeah, one thing we know, I noticed right off the bat that is different is the class name. Now in HTML, that's class, right? And let's see if I, okay, so let's do this. I did that a little quick. Go into your browser as you're developing like with React and in a browser. I really recommend you always have like your inspector open. So I'm going to do a right click and inspect. And now I can kind of start to see elements. I can go in and inspect what the HTML looks like, what isn't really super useful with React. But
how do you get your inspector at the bottom? I have mine on the right and it kind of takes up most of the screen.
You go to the 3 dots and then select. This is how you can change the order. So if you want it at the bottom, select that one.
All right.
And then, yeah, you can like resize this window, close stuff. But what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to like use the console. Because something I'm getting now, it's like giving me a warning, invalid DOM property name class. Did you mean class name? So it's like, yes, I did. I fixed that. App.js. Reload. Cool. And now that warning's gone. So if I want to add a class, if I want to do some styling, I can do like, class, I don't know, main. I'll just call it MH for main header. Oh yeah, I'm getting the warning again, name. And then I could go in and find like my index.css. I'm going to really make this smaller. And I can start adding some styles. Main, or what did I call it? MH, M-H. Color is red. And now I can add styles, just like you were doing beforehand.
The M-H, oh, that's what you named yours as instead of main. Okay.
Yeah. Another thing I can like, so now we're not, so this is where we're getting into the point like, well, I was saying we don't want to use console.logs. Our functions are going to be returning stuff. We can still do a console.log. So in this app, I run this function. What's really happening is you can think of these components. These are functions. And they're going to be rendered to the DOM. But before it's rendered, it's going to run this code. So I can do like a console.log hello. And there it is. There's my hello. So if you want to do console.logs and like do some debugging, you're going to see it in that inspect element. So this is why it's nice to have this open, because you're going to see You're going to see your logs. This is also where you could potentially see, I mean, sometimes if it breaks like a huge break, it'll actually show up in your browser. But for the more subtle ones, like when we didn't have that as class name, you're going to get like some warnings here. So that's why the inspector is nice to have open.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Like in the future, when we're doing this, like with real websites and stuff, would we want to have console.log? Because wouldn't people, if they were to inspect the website, wouldn't they be able to see that? I don't know if that's an issue or not, but
Yeah, probably not. And actually, I definitely like at companies I worked at, yeah, you use console.logs when you're developing, but before you like push to GitHub, you would
you
like,
want to take those out.
yeah, you would remove them all.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd definitely be like, because what will happen, before you push, usually your code would be reviewed. And if someone saw like a console.log, they'd be like, yeah, take that out. So for now, we don't need to worry about that, but yeah, you're right. We would not throw those in there. Or probably not. Cool. Let's make this interactive. So, the nice thing about JavaScript is, and having HTML be in our JavaScript and not the other way around, I'm just in a JavaScript file. So I can do some, cool stuff. I can just come in here, create a paragraph, hello, or like click me. And on this paragraph, I can add a onClick handler. So once again, this is a JSX attribute. It's not, if this was HTML, it'd be like a click, I think, or it'd be like an on. I actually can't remember what the handler is on HTML. It's like on click or something. But this is specifically on uppercase click. Now what I can do here is I'm going to do a curly bracket and do handle click yo. I'm just going to call it something weird. So now I get an error. Handle click yo is not defined. So what actually these curly brackets are doing is it's saying, hey, like this is JavaScript right here. If I write curly brackets in my JSX, it's going to interpret it as JavaScript. So now it's like, oh, I need to like, so it's trying to like add this event handler to this onClick, but this is not defined. Well, let's come define it. Const handle click. Here's my function. Oh, I call it handle click yo. So I need to call my function handle click. And then here we could do like a console.log. Clicked. So now when I click here, I get that, I'm handling that event. Let's look at something a little interesting. So notice with JavaScript, I'm not calling this function. It's just, I'm passing like a reference. It's just a variable. I'm just passing the reference to the function. Let's see if I call the function. Notice how the parentheses, that's me actually calling the function. I'm going to save this. Let me clear my console. So notice this one logs clicked when I didn't even click it, because it actually is mounting. So what I would say is this component is mounting to the DOM. But since this one has the parentheses, it's actually calling it as it mounts, which Sometimes we want to call a function when the component mounts, and sometimes we don't. Just depends on the case. Do you think we
Wait.
want?
Can you describe that one more time? Please?
Yes. Let's, so I have this function handle clicked, yo. It's just consoles.log clicked. And right here, I just am passing the function to the handler, but here I'm actually calling the function because it has the parentheses. And actually something you can do in your terminal, in your console, you can actually write JavaScript. So I could come in here and write a function just to kind of demo this console.log. Yo. Okay, so here I have my, if I type X, that's saying, hey, X is just a function. It's not running the function, but if I invoke the function with parentheses, now it actually runs the function. Does that make sense? So X is just kind of the reference. It's just like that function that's ready to go. Think of it like as a stick of dynamite where it has a fuse. Like you have that function, you have that thing that's ready to blow, but it's not going. When you call it X, that's like lighting the fuse and it blowing. That's calling the function. So it's going to run. So here in this handle click, I'm not calling it. I'm just passing it as a reference. Here I'm actually calling it when it renders. I hit refresh. So this one, I get this logged, it's logging click. And like I said, sometimes you want to call the function, other times you don't. So in this case, do you think we want to call it or not? Yeah, because also when I try clicking on this one, the second one, that doesn't work because it's already been called. This one works. So what you're going to find with JavaScript, there's a lot of like callbacks, a lot of asynchronous code. Like, I don't want this handle click yo to run when this program runs. I want it to run when the button is clicked. When is that going to happen? I have no idea. Just whenever the user clicks it. So I'm saying, I'm giving them a function handle click yo to run when that paragraph is clicked. There we go. Sweet. So let's do a let's kind of do a counter example and kind of do something more than just clicked. So what I want to do is I want to have like a counter where I can click plus and minus, and it's going to change the counter from going from like 1, 2, 3, or can minus. Now, something I'm going to do right off the bat is this is kind of going to be, I think, like this counter. I want this to kind of be its own little thing, its own little app, its own little component. I could do all the logic right here in my app.js. But, this is React. One of the nice things with React is, I can reuse this code. I can break this up into smaller sections. And maybe this counter component I want to reuse because maybe I want to like count my steps. I want to count how many calories I've eaten. I want to count, how many hours I've coded. But I still want to have the same base functionality. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this in my source folder, is I'm going to create a new file. I'm just going to call this counter.js. Cool. So let's go ahead and write our first React component. Something I want to do, it's technically, I don't have to do this, but I want to show it because it is kind of happening behind the scenes. I want to import React from React. So React is automatically given to us when we do the yarn create React app. It's downloaded for us. It's in this project, but I need to import it. Technically, I don't because VS Code's doing some stuff behind the scenes, but really I do need to import React because I want to use JSX, and JSX is a React feature. So I'm going to import React from React, and then I'm going to stub out my function component right here. And lucky for us, this is just a function. Const counter equals a function. There we go. Now this function is going to return some JSX. So I'm going to do return. And since I want this to be on multiple lines, I'm going to use parentheses. That's why I use the parentheses, is because now I can write this as, you know, multiple lines. So I could do like a div, and like inside of that div, I could do like an H1 counter. Notice once I wrote the JSX that this import ungrayed out. If I don't have this in here, that's grayed out. It's like, oh, I don't need hey, it's saying you don't need to use React. The second I give it some JSX, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that is needed. So I want to export default this component because I'm not going to use it here. This is kind of where I'm defining it. So I want to use it in my app.js. So I'll say this in JS, you can have one default export. That's how I have this variable that I'm defaulting export. Cool. So there's that. So now my app.js, what I can do is I can import counter from, and now if it's a file I created, I need to give it the relative path. What do I mean when I say relative path? Has anyone heard that word?
Like where it's located on your computer?
Yeah, so where it's located on my computer. So there's two terms you could say, relative path and absolute path. The relative path, if you say relative path is from where, how do I word this the right way, is where
you're currently at versus where it's like the base of your root folder.
Yeah, where you're currently at.
Yeah. And then
So-
if you do the other one, it's like the absolute path, that's pulling all the way from like the tilde section, right?
The absolute path is from, you know, it should be from the backslash, or it might be from the, so it'd be like, the absolute path would be like backslash. Well, let's see what the absolute path of this one would be.
Root folder.
PWD. There we go. See, an absolute path would be users, James Yates, React demo, source, you know, ... So it's like that full path. A relative path. So right now I'm in my app.js file. And my counter is also in that same file. So I would just do a dot to say, hey, this is the same folder. And then, oh my gosh, I'm so used to auto imports now, dot counter.
Would you need a dot backslash counter or just dot counter?
Yeah, dot backslash counter. So the dot says, hey, this is the same folder, and then find counter. I don't need the JavaScript because once again, if it's a .javascript extension, I don't need to put it. So like if I had a new folder, like I called this like yo, and then inside of here, new folder that was like X. And then inside of there, I had some file like counter1.js. I'm just doing this really quick. You don't need to follow along. And I wanted to grab that one. That would be import, you know, counter1 from. That goes into my yo folder, and then I need to go into the X, and then I need to grab the counter1.
So if it's in the same folder, you just need to reference the file, not the folder or anything.
You do a dot slash.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, like if I was in the counter1 and I wanted to grab my counter, because this one I would do like a from. Well, now I need to go like back, and grab counter. So I'm saying, hey, go back a directory, go back a directory, and then find counter. Something to use while you're doing this is use the autocomplete. Or use this because it will like pop up what you have. So if I do like a dot slash and I'm like trying to count counter, like, and I don't see anything, it's not there. Like I do a dot slash. See, VS Code is like, okay, here are the directories that are back behind you. See how it like knows? Oh yeah, we won't go that far. I can go to my documents. Sure, that's fine. But see, it like knows where you're going. So if you don't see the thing, you definitely use autocomplete on this. Cool. So now I've imported that component or this function. Now something that's going to be a little different because this is a function, right? So you might think, you know, I should probably come in here and do something like counter and call it. That'd be very logical to think that like somewhere come here and call it. But actually what I'm going to do, we're going to use this syntax. And it's just how it works with JSX is I kind of treat it like an HTML element counter. And there we go. There's our count. There's that, at least that HTML tag counter here. And the nice thing is I can use this multiple times. So I define my counter once, but you know, I can use it many times in whatever files, but I'll just get rid of it. So it's just we're just down to one. Cool. So let's now.
Oh, I'll just say I'm got a big old error. I'm not sure what I did wrong. Let me just look at your code for a second.
I'll slack out as is the app.js encounter.
Okay, I'll just look at it. It's like there.
I'm gonna end the counter. Okay, so I'd say today there's kind of like three or four main concepts that I want to kind of talk about today. We've kind of seen one and this is like more particular, this is more specific with React. So like main concepts. The first one is JSX. It's kind of like the first thing we're learning about. The second one is like components. So app is a component, counter is a component. And these are all going to be functional components. So they're all just functions. The next two things are going to be state and props. So these are kind of like the main concepts we're going to be talking about. So we see JSX is just like this embedded HTML and JavaScript, where we can write JavaScript in HTML. We're seeing, you know, I can write I can build out this separate component in this separate file. I can export it and import it in another file and use it. But right now, this counter is not really counting anything. So let's talk about the next thing, which is state. What I want this counter to have is, you know, I want it to have like count. I want it to have like a count. You know, it's going to be 0. And then we're going to have a button. It's going to say add. And a button that says like minus. Then on here, let's go ahead and add some on click. On click add on click equals minus. So I need to define these two functions. Const add is just a function, and const minus is just a function. And just for testing purposes, we can do a console.log, you know, add clicked, copy that and do the same thing for minus clicked. So I click add, now I'm getting that add click log, I click minus, I'm getting that minus click log. It's not changing the count, but
wait, so after we add the on click add and minus the buttons, what did you type at the top? Can you highlight what you typed?
I made those, so add and minus, these are, I'm passing this on click a function to run when these are clicked. So I define those two functions just right up there. Okay. So what we want to do next is I actually want to have this count, this 0 that I'm hard coding here, actually change when I, you know, click these buttons. And when you think about like a web application and you think about things changing, that's when like this, you know, we can think about our web application as having state. Like this count, it's going to be at a certain state. It's going to change. So with React, what we're going to use is what's called a hook, and it's called a use state hook. And I need to import that from React. And how I do that is I import React and then I do a comma and then use state from React. So, and this is just a JavaScript thing. This is not a React thing. So in a JavaScript file, you can export default one thing, but you can have many exports. I could say like export, you know, const x equals, you know, whatever. And I can export, you know, y, a function, console.log. So I have one default export. I can export many things. I just kind of want to show you this syntax. So let's go to my app.js And so I can import my counter. So that's the default export. I don't need the curly brackets, but if I want to import those other ones, so I call them like X and Y, I'm going to use the curly brackets. This is not object destructuring. This is import exports in JavaScript files. So this is the first time we've worked with multiple files. So this is how we can export things and import things into these different files. So here I could like, X. There's my whatever. See, I'm importing X and then I'm using it here. So remember with JSX, if I use curly brackets, that's just going to evaluate that value of X. And then I could also call that Y as a function. I could just call that function Y func. There's that log. Or, maybe I want to like call the Y function inside of here.
Do you want us to add that X and Y since you haven't assigned it yet, or just leave it?
No, you don't have to. This is kind of a side note from just a JavaScript import export. I want to show you what's going on here. So React is a library that default exports React, but then it also exports this useState function. So going back to React and this useState function, let me show you how this works. So we're going to do it like this. State, I'll call this Git state. Let's just call this state and set state equals useState initial state. So useState is a function from React that takes initial state. Let me ask you this, from what we talked about earlier, any guesses what type of data, if you look at how I'm using this, what type of data does useState return?
An array?
Yeah, it's an array because we're doing that array destructuring we learned about. So what it's actually returning is it returns an array whose first value is the state, whatever state you want. This could be anything. And then the second thing it returns is this way to set that state. It's going to be a function to change this state. And then we can pass useState an initial state of where we want it to start at. So if I'm doing a counter, and one of the nice, why it returns in an array, like why does it return? That's kind of weird to return in an array. The reason it does that is it actually gives me the ability to name these whatever I want. I just have to remember, like the first thing is the state itself. The second thing is the way to set that state. So I want to keep track of count states. So I'm being nice to myself and giving this a good name, count and set count. I could call this X and Y, where X would be the state and Y would be the function to set that X state. But let's actually make these good names. I'm going to say useState. For my count, what do you think I want my initial value to be?
0.
Yeah, 0. So I'll throw in 0 there. And now instead of hard coding the 0, I can grab the value of my state count. Boom. And it's still 0. If I change this to 10, that's 10. If I change that to, hello, that initial state is hello. See, it doesn't matter that it's called count. That's just giving it the initial state. It's not going to, we'll kind of talk about arrays in a second, but it's really not going to show that. But yeah, So I'll just give it 0. If I give it an object, it will blow up. Yeah, it blows up. It doesn't like to render objects. So, but what I want that to be is 0. So what I want to do on the add, when add is clicked, I'm going to grab this second thing from the use state hook, the setter, and I'm going to set the count. Well, what do I want to set the count as? Let's just set it to 5. So when I click add, boom, it's now 5. I don't want that to be 5. I want that to be count plus 1. So take the value, the current value of count, and just add 1 to it. And there we go. I think it would be very tempting, like here, you know, to say like, hey, I want to do count plus plus. I just want to take my count and want to like add 1 to it. That doesn't work. I get this error. So with our state, we don't want to mutate our state direct. We want the set count to change our state. I don't want to do this either. I don't want to do count plus plus. I just want that set count to change it to that new value that I want. So I want to take my count value and I want to add 1 to it. Let's go ahead and refresh. Did I break here?
You're forgetting to have it at set count.
Oh yeah, thank you, set count. There we go. And then for the minus, it can just be -1. And you know, I could come in here, I could have another button, I could do like a reset. I'm going to do this right here. Because what I want to do right here is I just want to set count to 0, right? Doesn't that make sense? Just if someone resets it, I just want to set my count to 0. Let's refresh. Oh, why is it getting? I need to save that. Okay, blows up. What's going on here? Let's clear it again. Let's reset. If I look at my errors, trying to find it, too many re-renders. React limits the renders to prevent an infinite loop. Oh, I'm saying this like infinite loop. So I'm actually in an infinite loop. So what's going on here? And something to note with the set count, so, or with the set state, this function, whenever you trigger this, whenever you call this set count or this set state method and change the state, what it's going to do, it's going to, and the term is like re-render this component. It's going to trigger this component to be re-rendered, which is essentially going to like call this function again, or call this return again right here. So let's look at why this is getting in an infinite loop. So remember here with the add and minus, I'm not calling those. I don't have the, you know, parentheses there. I'm just passing, you know, here's a reference to be called when you are clicked. On this one, I am actually calling it. So what happens is it calls this set count to 0. So remember, calling set count is going to set the count to 0, and then it's going to re-trigger this. And then it remounts. Well, what happens when it remounts? It calls this function. It calls the set count. That causes it to re-render. That causes it to re-render. So that's my infinite loop. So I could do this. I could just call like a reset function and throw this inside of here. Then I can click reset. Let me show you one other thing that I can do though, a little JavaScript thing. So I could actually call set count here and actually wrap this in a function that returns this function. All right. This now works.
An inception,
What?
like function inception.
Yeah. So let's take a quick second to understand. And this is going to be more about JavaScript functions than anything. So what I'm going to do is kind of explain what's going on here, but let's not think about it in terms of React. I'm going to come in here and just at like the root level, and you can just watch this and then I'll Slack this out. I kind of think this is going to be better if you just like take your hands off the computer screen and kind of just watch what's going on here. Okay, so I kind of told a little bit of a lie where I said in JavaScript, you know, we have our function. Let's just do an add function that we kind of know so well. So we have our add function. And I told you that, you know, we need to return something, right? I can't just, let's do it like this, num1, num2. Num1 plus num2. I do const, you know, sum equals add, you know, 1 and 1. Console.log. First of all, kind of erase your memory from everything that's just happened. Just go back to what you know about JavaScript. What do you think sum is going to be? Before we run this.
Would it be 1-1?
No, because well, here we're taking one, here we're adding 1 and 1. We add 1 and 1 together. So, you know, num1 would become 1, num2 would be 1. So it'd be 1 plus 1, which would be 2. But yeah, what that, is it going to be 2? I think you're quiet because you're like, yes, but you're like, no. Yeah, it's not, it's undefined. It's undefined because I'm not returning it. I have to return that value. There we go. We need the return keyword. If you don't use the return keyword, it's going to return undefined.
Okay, so just so as the explanation, the const add, that's where the add from sum equals add is coming from, correct?
Yeah.
And then num1 and 2 is the add equals num1 and 2.
Wait, sorry, this const add, this is defining, this is a function definition. Defining a function called add. Here I'm calling that function.
Right, but when you're calling the function and giving the 1 and 1, you're giving those numbers in place of num1 plus num2 because you're defining them. Is that correct?
I'm passing 1 and 1 as arguments. Yeah, and then they kind of fulfill those values or become those values. Like 2 and 4.
In school, I was absolute shit with math, so functions are hard for me to get. Because it's confusing a little bit to me how it's laid out, so I have to stop and think about what is bringing from what.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, functions have been harder than most other things we've gone over. So this is just where I struggle.
Yeah. I think if you can, yeah, the function definition, you do this once.
Right.
And like here, I'm kind of just thinking abstractly, like, oh, it's an add function. It's going to take, you know, a number 1, a number 2, and then I'm going to add those together.
So what if you don't have it be num1 and num2? What if you give the 1 and 1 up there? Does that change it, or is that you have to have the callback and just leave those as parameters?
I mean, I could do like turkey, like taco.
Yeah. So it
Like
doesn't really
that?
matter. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter what those are, because in the const sum equals add, you're
Well,
giving them their value with 1 and 1. Is that right?
Yeah, but now this is not going to work because
Because you have the return num1 and num2 rather than turkey and taco.
yeah, so now I'd have to have those be turkey and taco.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
thank
could
you. That
you-
makes more sense.
Sorry, can you call it a different way without, like, on line 7 and 8, how you made like a new variable named sum and sum1?
Well, I can call like this add function just like that.
Okay.
So, but this would just like return 2, and then there'd be like a 2 here. It'd be like typing 2 in my code. Like add 1 and 1. In my mind, I see this is 2 because this returns 1 plus 1. But if I just have 2 here, like that, it's just not going to do anything. Does that, like, so I either need to like log it or like store it to a variable so I can use it elsewhere. So usually what we do with functions is, you know, we take the return value and store that to a variable or do something with the return value. So that's what I'm doing here. Does that answer your question, or kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, that part's confusing to me, how you have to set it to something else, but you do that in order to reuse it instead of just console logging it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to, I could just console.log it directly. That would work too.
But in a way, when you start doing that, and especially when you got multiple lines of code, it'll get kind of messy, right?
I mean, no, I mean, it's if all I wanted to do was log my answer, then I'd say I don't need to store these to variables.
But you store them as a variable. So if like later down, say 40 code lines down, if you want to call back to this sum1, since you've already declared the variable, you can just go back and say sum1 and it will pull it from there.
Like
Okay.
I want to do something like this. I want to grab the 2 values and then I want to use them elsewhere in my code.
Okay.
So
So I think what at least I have to do in my brain is the const add is you're setting it up how you want it to be. And then you use that and put it in the let sum. So that way you can call back to it and get the, you know, the turkey plus taco or whatever it may be.
yeah,
And then, okay.
cool. So yeah, let me just make this more confusing. So there is like, if I can do something like this is a pretty simple function. I really could write this in 1 line. I don't need if you can write something in 1 line. Let me just call this like, let's just change the names a little to in 1 and 2. Okay, now I'm writing this function like this. There's no return value, right?
Right.
So let's do like console.log add 1, 2 and 2. Well, we saw earlier, like if I didn't have the return value, it's undefined. So this is going to be undefined, right?
All right.
Wait, question,
We
would
need to-
you
we
need
need to
that
change
second
N1.
N1 to be N2?
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even
Yeah,
see that.
that's the error. See, it's saying duplicate parameter name. So
Okay.
need to
So yeah,
change that. There we
but
go. It's logging 4.
because you're giving in the purple parentheses the 2 and 2, that's giving N1 and N2, their key value.
Yeah, I mean, these two things are the exact same.
Right. Okay.
This one, I'm showing what I want you like. This one, I don't need the return. I don't need the curly brackets because I can do it all in one line. So, you know, if you don't need curly brackets, it will implicitly return the value. Implicitly return. Like, so this is implicitly meaning it's going to like do this math and then it's going to return that thing.
Okay. Okay.
Let's do another like function thing. Let's do a const. Okay, let's say I have a function, and I'll write this as a different, get practice with the other syntax function, say hello. Console log hello.
So here you're saying when you call the function say hello, it's gonna put hello.
Let's try this. Is this going to say hello?
I don't think that'll say anything because you didn't put the
Yeah,
the
I didn't
parentheses,
call it, so I need to call it.
Right.
And then now it logs hello.
Yeah, because the hello is taking the empty space between the first set of brackets next to say hello, because that's what you're giving, you're pushing that value into there. So when you call back say hello with the empty parentheses, it's just trying to pull hello because that's what it's. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're over. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm probably overthinking it, and that's probably my issue right there. But functions are.
Yeah, I'm defining a function, and inside of
Yeah.
here, it's doing stuff. All it's doing is logging hello. Here, I'm calling the function. So when I call the function, it runs the code inside of here.
Right. Okay.
So let's say I have, how do I want to show this?
I think the basic functions like that, like the say hello, that one's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to read. I think, at least for me, when I come to more problems is when you start getting more lines in your function, and I start to get confused there. So I think it may just have to be as we go, I ask questions.
Yeah, you just have to start writing them out.
Yeah.
So let's combine, let's say I have a function. This one, how do I want to write this one without getting too confusing? This is just, I think, probably going to be confusing for a lot of you. But let's just do it anyway. Let's say I have like I'm just going to call this function X, or like function. I'm just forgetting how to spell function X.
So now if you call X, it's going to call back to the other function, say hello.
Yeah, so let's do this. Let, like, and I'm just naming these. Actually, you'll sometimes see these names when you can't really like think of names. You'll see like foo and bar. So I'm going to say these are just kind of placeholders. Like, I don't really care what this function is named.
Right.
So like console.log. These can be like interview questions where it's like, look at this code. What is this going to log? Like, you don't get to run it. You just have to kind of, you have
to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a say hello function. I have a foo function that returns say hello. And I have this, I call foo, I set that equal to bar. What is this going to log?
Say
hello, right?
Let's see.
Whoa.
I need to save it.
Oh yeah. Function, say hello. So why does it say function rather than just hello?
I have a function. I have this function foo.
Right.
Let's do baz. Return 1. Let bam equal Baz. This is where you like can like get yourself so wrapped up that like you can't even get this one right, because this one's simple, but now I'm like throwing all these terms at you and your mind's getting jumbled. So I have this Baz function that returns 1. I say let bam equal Baz, I call it, and then I'm going to log bam. What is bam?
Bam is Baz.
It's the whole function, right?
So BAM would
So it's
be
gonna log
one.
the whole function.
I'm running it. What does Baz return? It's just
One.
one. So bam's just going to be 1.
Okay.
Like that was just meant, I think meant to be super simple. So I have this
Yeah.
Baz function returns 1. I set that equal to this bam variable. So bam is just 1.
So like, let's say instead of calling Bam, if you just call Baz, you get the same response, the 1, correct?
Yeah, if I
So-
console.log Baz, well, what if I console.log Baz without the brackets? That's a function. If I console.log Baz with the parentheses, that calls it. So that's 1.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
reason it called when you did the bar and foo, the reason it called the whole function is because it was just referencing the whole function, right? Like in total, it wasn't actually like exercising the function, right?
Yeah, so this one is, are you talking about right here?
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is not calling it, it's just returning the
Right.
function. So that's why here, when I say bar equal to foo, and I call it, and let me comment these out. So
Real quick, before you delete that, what is that pink parenthesis doing?
the pink parenthesis,
Yeah, in the Baz, the last one.
I mean, the color is a syntax thing, it's calling the function. So this one, am not calling Baz. Here I am calling Baz. So this would be like, this would log like a function. This just is saying, hey, this is just a function. It doesn't run it. This is saying, hey, this is 1.
so in that first situation, you're showing us with the bar and foo, if you were to console.log the because you just console.log bar, right?
Yeah, so
So if you
here,
were to use parentheses, it would run the function.
yeah, so foo is just returning say hello. So bar is, the function. We're gonna see this log say hello.
Oh, okay. That right there makes sense.
And then, but yeah, if we actually run bar, then we get the string hello.
So essentially those parentheses are just taking away the function part of it.
No, I don't. Sorry, what?
The pink parentheses are taking away the function and not the function, but the how it types function. And now it's just gonna say hello instead of function say hello. It's just gonna say hello, right?
No, the bar, see, this is something that I think you need to wrap your head around with JavaScript. So let's just look at this demo right here. I have a function Baz that just returns 1. If I console.log Baz, let's just do this right. Just to keep this clear. I'm going to call this like taco. Okay, so I have a function and I just want to like get this like separated from all of this, because I think we're seeing a couple different examples. Okay, so I have a function taco. It returns 1. Now something that's really powerful with JavaScript is that I can like pass around functions. I don't have to call them. It's a pretty powerful feature that like I can just do this. So I can run this. So this first one, I'm not calling the function taco. It's just like I can pass it around. Here I actually call taco. And that actually is going to log 1.
So in the first one, you're just basically passing the function around, but it's not completing the function.
Yeah, it's not calling it. So I could have a function turkey that returns taco. So if I console.log turkey, let's run this. That's my function turkey. So that's just that turkey function. What if I do that?
It's going to return taco.
That's the function taco.
Okay.
What if I do this? There's my 1. So turkey returns a function. So, oh, let's just call that function. Oh, there's my 1. I'll throw out like this little demo in Slack. All right. So what I could do is like, I could say like, let X equal turkey. Let Y equal X. Also that log Y. That break it. X has already been declared. Let's come up with some, that is also 1. So that's another thing about JavaScript functions. JavaScript functions can return functions. You know what else JavaScript functions can do is they can take functions. So let's do it. Let's do another function. Burger. Stick with the food theme here. I don't know. I'll just call this. I'm just calling these bad names just so it's really making you think about what these are. Okay. So I have a burger function. It takes P, let's not call it P, let's call it a Z. It takes Z, and now it's just calling Z. And let's have it actually, well, let's not have it return yet. So now I have burger. I'll pass it taco, which returns 1. So taco is a function that returns 1. So I can pass my burger function this taco function, and the burger function will call it. Let's, I don't know, Q equal that.
Isn't Z already equal to turkey though?
Yes, I mean, but is this going to cause a problem? Am I going to get an error? this Z and that Z are not the same.
Okay.
But I can see that. I'll just rename that. But that wouldn't cause a problem because they are different.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was going to call the function turkey because of that.
And let's do this. Let's say like let, I equal W, and then we'll console.log I. By sometimes naming really your variables just kind of random names, it really makes you like think about what's going on. Because sometimes you can make code too readable, especially when you're learning. You can't make code too readable. I take that back. But sometimes when you're beginning and you get really readable code, I think it can kind of like not force you to like think about what's actually going on. So by using just random variable names and bad variable names, it really forces you to kind of like follow what's going on. I'm going to do this so we can see it. So console.log I is 1 right here. Because this function burger is taking a function and it's going to store that return value of that function to I, and it's going to log that, that thing. And the function I'm giving it, taco, just returns 1. Let's get burger. Let's just pass burger a function right here that this is an implicit return, so I don't need curly brackets. So this is just a function that returns ASDF. So now in this case, because I'm calling this, I finally get in here and I'm calling this function. So now it returns ASDF. Or whatever that is. Now these are logging undefined because this burger function isn't returning anything. So yeah, marinate on that one for a while. I'll just select this whole thing out.
I think that, I mean, at least that helped me so with some more understanding of functions and things like that. But I think, like I said before, functions are just going to be something I'm a little confused on, because obviously you can do a few different things with them, and it can get a little confusing if you forget your names, or you forget where something's supposed to go, or a bracket or something like that. So I may still have questions, but that did help. Thank you.
Oh, and I'm not I think what we just did there, that's doing a little deep dive into functions. And I think, if you got like 10% of that, that'd be good. But it's kind of one of those things you kind of just need to like see it and kind of just have like the WTF moment of like, what was that? And then the next time it kind of just starts to connect a little more. Because this especially, when you're like talking about functions, taking functions, calling functions, returning functions, it can get a little like inception-y.
Yeah. And I think that's where I get confused, is like, I'll name a function something, and then I get used to naming it that, and then my brain will instinctively write the same name, and then my code ends up breaking, and then I get confused. And so I need to remember different functions and name them differently, remember your names, and label them properly to where they match the function, so you know what they're doing.
And and going back to where we started. So remember what I'm doing here is I'm wrapping this, because remember how we saw you could just write a function like, this is a function that just returns 1.
Right.
But what I'm doing here is I'm having a function return this function call. So this way, this is now a function that's not getting called. This is a function that when it's called is going to call this function. So that's how we avoid that infinite loop. Because if I don't have that wrapped in a function that returns a function, and I save this and refresh, I get an infinite loop.
That's a really solid point. Can you explain that just one more time, please? What you just said again, just so I like really get a mental image of it.
Yeah, so going back to React and this set state hook. So whenever I call this set count, it's going to trigger this to re-render, this return to happen again. But if I'm calling the function, well, that's going to trigger this to re-render, and then I'm going to call it again. That's going to trigger it to re-render, and we're going to get stuck in the loop. See, these add and minuses, this add function and minus, I'm not calling them. I'm just saying, hey, when this is clicked, call the add function. When this is clicked, call the minus function. But when this renders, since I'm using the parentheses, it's saying, hey, call it. But I don't want to do that. So what I can do is I can just, as a shorthand, I'm going to wrap this in a function that returns this, that's when called is going to run this function. So now it's not running when it mounts, but it does run when it gets clicked.
Okay.
So this might take like 5 times to kind of hear and type for it to fully sink in.
Yeah.
But let's take a break. That we kind of, oh gosh, it's almost
It's almost one.
I think my head exploded like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me just do, okay, since I guess it's kind of, I just want to show one more thing. I know you're burned out, and we'll definitely talk about this later. This is just like, yeah, React basic stuff. I just want to throw the concept of props in your head. So let's say I want to, so we talked about state, and this is how we can change the state of our app. But let's say I want to reuse this component, and like I want to have different titles. So I don't want it to say counter here. Like I want it to be able to like change. I want it to say like food counter or calorie counter or step counter. So this is where props come in. And so how I do props. So remember how I was talking like props we give to the function, and it's always going to be an object. So it doesn't have to be called props. This is just a parameter. I could call it anything, but it's React. So we're going to call it props because that's what it is. So what React allows us to do is it allows us to pass props to this component, just like we can pass arguments to a function. It just is a little different. I know this is a function and this is a parameter props, but let's see how we can pass a prop. And what I want to pass, remember props is always going to be an object. So I'm just going to call this props.title. Okay.
Now dot title is what you're naming it, or dot title is a command?
Title, so props is going to be an object. And I'm expecting right now, like I'm expecting props to be an object right now that has title. And I'm going to want that to be a string. That's like mentally what I'm thinking right now. But this is just like the function, like I'm defining this component, but now someone has to actually give me the title because I'm just writing the function. I'm writing the component. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm just saying, hey, if you want to use my counter component, if you give me a title prop, I'll put it right here as your header. Cool. So, okay, so let's give them a title prop. So let's go to the app.js. And right here, here's how we give a prop. We match that name of the prop, its title, and then we can give it the value. Like our, like, I don't know, homework counter. Boom. So now that's a homework counter and we can add that. And now I can copy and paste this and I can reuse that counter component, but I can change the title for each counter component. So now I can reuse this logic of like the add, minus, and reset, but I can have multiple counters with their own. Notice how they had their own state. So you can have this as many times as I
And
want.
that's all working through the prop.title.
Yeah. So if I kind of think of it from the other end, let's say I want to give these all like an X prop. I don't really care what this is right now. X. Let's do like 1. Let's just do it. Let's just do a number 1, 2, 3. So now I'm giving them, I'm saying I'm passing an X prop down. Now the counter is not going to do anything with that X prop until I go into my counter component and do something like, you know, I actually need to go and use it. Props.x. So that's the way I can like pass things down to my component. I could also do like, you know, I could even have that maybe be like the starting value props.x. So now I could send down like a starting value for my state. So now that count's going to be 1, that count's going to be 2, that's going to be 3. And then they can, you know, go from there. So that's what I wanted to show with props. I think that's good enough for now. I will leave it there and leave the time for questions or, so I'll say this. I know we've gone a while, so if you want to hop off, just hop off, and come back at 2 o'clock, but I'll stick around for another 10 minutes if there's any questions.
I just had a quick question for the people, like everybody in the group. I see a few people have some like those like more specific chairs. What do you guys use for chairs? Because I need to get one. I'm using this kitchen chair at the moment.
I'm using this one. I like this one a lot. I don't.
I'm rocking that kitchen chair too.
Mine's an MSI. It came with my monitor.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I was looking on Amazon, but like kitchen chair's killing my back. So
Yeah, look at me. I'm like stretching out my back right now.
You need that lumbar support.
yeah, I saw one online that has like a lumbar massager, and I think that'll be good for my back injury. But still, it's just
For posture, I think the route is ergonomic. I wish I had an ergonomic. Those are really comfortable.
have to look into that too. All right, thanks, guys.
Down.
Oh, he's all the way back. All right, see y'all after lunch.
See you.
Hey, James, can you Slack out the final code for the apps in the counter section?
I just slacked out the counter and the app components.
Okay, thank you.
Those should be the 2 most recent things in Slack.
All right, thanks.
All right, just one quick question before I do go. Can you go back to the counter real quick?
Yeah.
So when you put props.x, what did that do? Because I already seen you added the props.title, and I kind of have a general understanding of what that did. But now, what does the props.x do?
Well, so yeah, so once again, it's all kind of like what I'm expecting these props to be. Expecting there to be, this is just to be an object when this is given to me with a title and an X prop. Because where's that props.x coming from? Well, it's actually, I'm passing it down when I render these counter components. I'm defining that X prop here, the actual value 1, 2, 3. So that's when like we refresh, you know, we see that 1, 2.
Oh, okay. So it's just giving it a set count.
Yeah. So I'm like saying, hey, X is 1 here, X is 2 for this one, X is 3, but they all have that X prop. Just
And
like
then
they
like
all,
now, sorry, if you, so say like you start counting up on step counter, if you get to 4, 5, 6, and then you reset it, it'll just go back to 2, right?
no, this will go back to 0. In my counter,
Because you have the counter that resets back to 0.
yeah, I send it back to 0. If I wanted to set it back to that like starting value of props.x, I could say, hey, set that back to props.
So you just keep putting them inside of them inside of them.
Yeah, if that's how I want that to, yeah, I could have that reset to its original props.x.
Will that now did that affect the other ones when you reset the other ones or not?
No, so these components, they're like their own, these have their own state, like their own props. Like this prop is H1 counter, this is step counter. You know, when I reset this one, now it goes back to 1. When I reset this one, it goes to 2.
Okay.
When I reset that one, it goes to 3.
All
So
right.
it's kind of like, you know, it's this generic thing where, you know, it's kind of like a person where a person has a name and an age. So like a counter has like a name and it has a count. But it's specific to those individual counters.
Okay. All right. Thanks, James.
Cool.
You think you could go back to your app.js real quick?
Yeah.
I think I messed something up.
Get rid of that. Can you see it all? Or it's also out in Slack. But if you're just trying to look and get the specific one. Cool. I'm going to close the rooms. Y'all have a good lunch.